Members of the community and staff, I'd like to call to order the Community Service and Public Safety Committee meeting for today, Monday, July 25th, beginning at 10 a.m. Krista, a call to order, please.
Yes, sir. Mrs. Becker? Here. Mr. Lennox?
Here.
Mr. Stanford?
Here.
Mr. Harkins?
Here.
All present, sir.
Krista, in terms of FOIA compliance?
Yes, sir, we are in compliance, sir.
Okay, thank you. We have the minutes for approval for our meeting on May the 23rd, 2022.
Move to approve as presented.
Second?
I can't vote. I wasn't present at that meeting.
Okay. Yeah, let the record show that Glenn was not at the meeting. All those, so we have it moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Do we have any appearance by citizens today?
No, sir, I did not have anyone sign up to speak to the committee today.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is the Beaufort County Quarterly Crime Statistics Report. And today, we're pleased to have Lieutenant Andrew Fawcett.
Yes, sir.
Morning. Am I pronouncing your name
morning.
correctly?
Yes, sir. It's Andrew Fawcett.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. A little bit of business news with the sheriff's office. I can announce it now. It's official. Angela Viens has been transferred to the PIO position for the sheriff's office, and her position is now going to be staffed by Major Jeff Purdy, who's from the Northern Enforcement Branch, and he will be our branch commander south of the Broad River Bridge. Is Purdy, P-U-R-D-Y. He's on leave this week, so he'll be here on Monday.
All right.
But
So
and
you'll have a
he's
new- you'll have a
he's
new
very
commander.
familiar. It's been a few years, but he's been on the north side, has extensive background with us, has been around a long time.
Good. Well, we look forward to meeting him.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Well, please proceed.
Do you have any questions? I know that everybody's been able to go through, if you got the stats for reporting, any specific questions about going over these, I can talk about this all day long,
Sure.
which I won't do.
Lieutenant, I'll ask my colleagues. Okay.
Lieutenant, I think the thing that we're most interested in would be any ongoing trends you see, both favorable and unfavorable.
So the ongoing trends, as I review these, I made some notes. Obviously, we can talk about traffic here in a moment, but we'll talk about the assaults or crimes against persons. I won't make the assumption, I'll make that it is actually accurate. The aggravated assaults, as you see them in front of us right here, for the fiscal year or first quarter of 22 shows 20 aggravated assaults. To me, that was fairly alarming. But in reviewing and looking at how we report these are also all inclusive of domestic violence related. An assault is an assault is an assault. Mm-hmm. Just because it happened with two actors that are have some intimate relationship or in accordance with state guidelines, it's still listed as an aggravated assault. So I don't want the council to think that people are getting aggravated assaults occurring just by, John Q. Public walking around on the street. These are, I think the majority of the numbers are higher in the domestic area.
Do you think this is emanating from the situation we find ourselves with COVID and with rising prices and et cetera, et cetera? A lot of pressure.
Couldn't speak to that, sir. I think that there's, I don't know what I'm sure we're at full capacity here on Hilton Head. But the numbers actually come up, obviously, with the tourist season coming in, and it sure is a party around here.
Sure.
And after the heat and the sun and the long weekend, things happen. I can't specifically say whether it's local or visitors that this happens to, without going into further depth of victim reporting. But they seem to obviously increase with the capacity that's on the island as far as population density.
Has the concept of no cash bail worked its way down to local government in this area yet?
Sir, I have not noticed that at all. Our judicial branch is consistent, has been consistent, in my opinion. I've been here 26 years, and it's been consistent across the board, nothing extreme and nothing too lenient. Our bail system, in my opinion, and what I know and what I see, which is daily, is consistent with the offense that's committed.
And it works.
And it works.
Good.
The other one I wanted to touch on, to answer your question, sir, was crimes against property. As far as trends and things like that, our auto thefts are up a little bit, and I can specifically say, because I read these reports, this isn't somebody snapping a window out and jimmying the ignition on a BMW or a Mercedes. This is somebody that leaves their fob in the key or in the cup holder, and all you have to do is touch it and it opens up, and now all of a sudden they can unlock it. And it's a crime of opportunity for the most part, that I believe, with the auto thefts. But with the larcenies, they're very high. B&E motor vehicles, the larceny is all inclusive, so it's not specific, but shoplifting is a trend. It's an incredible trend. The B&E motor vehicles is a humongous trend. Found one the other day that just some found property that came in, and it's not specific. We know where the targets are at, but those targets, no matter how far apart they are, mid-island all the way to the south end, they will run that whole area. The bike paths and the easy in, easy out, and the hiding is really easy to do. So the B&E motor vehicles is extremely high.
Thank you.
Tammy, please.
Well, I'm going to ask the question that I generally ask because I don't think we reported enough, but I'd be interested in any drug-related offenses. I know that we have nationwide an increasing problem, and I'm wondering how any of that is impacting our island and where the drug stats are falling here.
The possession of marijuana, simple possession of marijuana offenses seem to be consistent and have been for years. Our officers make a courtesy arrest, not necessarily take somebody to jail for simple possession of marijuana anymore. But there are larger quantities that seem to be surfacing, and I would say recently, probably within the last year. Possession with intent, we've had some trafficking. Methamphetamine is a problem. It's specific. It's not broad. It's only smaller groups. It's not, the open-air drug market doesn't exist. That was squashed probably 10, 15 years ago because it's just not advantageous to stand on the street corner and try to sell drugs. It just isn't. It gets too much attention. We've had some real good interdiction stops and some open investigations where larger quantities and then our career criminal have been taken into custody and those charges have been made. Of course, when you see it in the paper or you see it on the blotters, the specific details of date, time groups and things like that aren't revealed because they're still open and active investigations. But the information is out there. But the heroin, opiates, we won't just call it heroin, we'll call it opiates. The fentanyl and the recently we haven't had anything, and I say recently with some degree of reservation that I know of with fentanyl overdose. But it's out there and it's still rearing its head. It's something we're going to fight for a while until people stop wanting to use fentanyl, or opiates, I should say.
And I think the last time I asked the question, I was asking if there was any correlation or if it was a significant correlation between the numbers that we see on the statistic boards and drug use and drug.
Well, without myself doing the interviews with these folks that we arrest for being in possession of these narcotics and stuff, where they come from and their backgrounds, yeah, these people have to feed a habit. And an unlocked car is definitely really easy. It's a soft target. It's extremely easy. for these folks to do it. And it's not inclusive to 30-year-olds.
Right, no.
It's juveniles. And I don't want to open up, well, that's a great shot. Did you miss it? Those are our investigators, in case you didn't know, that blink of an eye. I don't know how to make it go backwards. Okay, there they are. Those are your investigators that work this island and south of the Broad River Bridge. They do a great job.
So we're incredibly proud of them and all of you, and we value your hard work. I'm just going to say what I often say and say it again until something changes. In my mind, this is an issue. I wish there were more attention given to it. For the time being, if we can remind everyone what you tell us brilliantly, to take your valuables out of your car, put your car in your garage if you can, even if you do then, in both instances, lock your car, take your guns, take your key fobs, take everything of value out of your car. If there is a correlation between the drugs and the theft, that'll help resolve some of it, maybe in a very small way. But if it's a crime against opportunity for you to have it, there may be some small impact on it. Regardless, it's good advice. And we thank you for saying that, and hopefully everyone's listening when we say take your valuables out of your car and lock your car. Put it away in the garage if you can.
The false sense of security for many is out there, and not to open up an extended conversation, but surely the number of firearms that are stolen from cars in the recent history are extremely high. I can say this safely, 10 in the last 10 days.
Wow.
10 in the last 10 days.
And specifically add to that list, take your firearms out of your car when you lock or leave your car, regardless of where it is.
And the firearms that are being taken out of the cars predominantly are ending up in the hands of young people. I did want to touch on some vehicle collisions. You asked about some trends, things. I hope I'm not saying it prematurely, but I know there's 3 phases that are coming in the town of Hilton Head, up and down the corridor, in the business 278, the whole phase work. Somewhere down the road, it's way down the road. But anyway, with the traffic, I thought maybe somebody would have some questions about the collisions without the injuries on Hilton Head being high in the first quarter. I noticed myself that those are up across the board, at least for the first quarter of 2022 versus the first quarter of the previous 3 years. With the fatality is lower, but the number one collision causation in the town of Hilton Head is a rear end collision. It's the number one, and thank goodness, predominantly they're the slower speeds, people coming to a stop, obviously, and of course the time frame that these occur is in your rush hour, more rush hour traffic. When you start getting into the left turn, right turn, we have protected intersections, except outside of that rush hour window. The left turn seems to be in front of on-moving traffic, seems to be very, very, brings up the injury rate. That's the second collision. It's not necessarily side swipes, but we've definitely got a traffic problem with people running into each other, and it's the nature of the beast when you have so much traffic. I looked at these numbers. They're not too awful bad. Hopefully they can be better. My information that I have is a little more extended. I've got some marks in here. William Hilton Parkway, I'll just say it like this, is the relative element to our collisions. The traffic engineers have done a great job with the timing. In my opinion, I've been here for a long time on Hilton Head, and they've done a great job with them and protecting those intersections and making things safer, even though this number is higher at 158 in the first quarter of 22.
Lieutenant, I'd like to turn to my colleague here, Glenn, see if you had any comments.
Lieutenant, thank you for being here. Thank you for your service. I personally believe that the service that the Sheriff's Office provides us with reference to crime is outstanding. And I think that you're doing an excellent job. All of us are concerned about these aggravated assaults being up, the more violent personal crimes. I'm wondering, is there a concentration of location where those might occur on the island?
I would be wrong to make an assumption without reviewing this data. From what I've been reading and what I've been reviewing and seeing in the recent months, a lot of it is the short-term rentals. With the more active party areas, then things go south at Sunday afternoon at 5 o'clock at night because it's been a long, hot weekend. So things like that happen. We get people from the outside. It's not specific. I'm not picking on our tourists. They're here to have a good time and have a nice time, but life isn't perfect. But I think that's where predominantly most of it's coming from. I don't have the data, statistical data to back that up.
It would be very interesting if you could provide that data to us as a supplement to see where it's going on. I assume that you know that we have undertaken a serious revision of our ordinances dealing with short-term rentals to try to control some of the issues that we're facing there. We do get a lot of complaints about noise and the like, and the sheriff's office is elected not to enforce local ordinances, which is something that we regret, frankly. But that is what it is, as they say. I said that I think that you do an excellent job for us with reference to crime. I'm concerned about traffic control. I see that the collisions are being met, that numbers are up, but I'm concerned about traffic control. We never see officers out checking speed. We never see officers out, or sheriff's deputies out, checking people that are running red lights. It seems that this is an ongoing sport here on Hilton Head Island to see how many extra cars can squeeze through red lights. I, for one, when I'm the lead car and I get the green light, I always hesitate for a few seconds and look both ways to see who's playing that game. So I wonder why I have the perception that we're not getting a lot of traffic control from the sheriff's office, and if there's anything we can do about that, or am I just wrong?
We have officers that are constantly writing citations and issuing warnings, making those traffic stops consistently. The numbers are there. They may not be as high as they were in first quarter of 21, which I know they're not. The written warnings are. So the opportunity for the officers to make a stop and educate, and they're really not forced to, whether they write a citation or a warning is discretionary at their point, depending on how the seriousness of the traffic offense. Reckless driving doesn't get a written warning.
Lieutenant, related to that, can you share where you are in terms of your table of organization, person power-wise? Are you at full employment? Are you down 10%, 15, 20% in terms of officers?
I can speak for Southern Enforcement Branch right now, which is part of the Enforcement Division, and we are 6 officers down, 7 officers down. So we just, a whole group of them we just hired and have just reported. 4 of them reported this, 3 of them reported this weekend, and next Friday, the other 3 will report south of the Broad. 3 of them are prior experience, and 3 of them are brand new rookies.
Mm-hmm.
But
Well, that's good news.
it is good news. Our numbers aren't as bad as people would think. We still running minimum of 9 on a shift, 90% of the time, 95% of the time. We'd like to have 15. I would love to have 15. We're TO'd at 12.
Yeah.
And we do, to answer your question, Mr. Stafford, is about just some more information. We run traffic blitzes frequently. Right now, they're double tasked. We don't have any core positions for a traffic team or a just call takers or things like that. We try to do more with less, and of course we do. Everybody seems to, but when we do these traffic blitzes, those are the high topic offenses that we look at. 1 is tailgating, 2 is reckless driving, 3 is running red lights. And the other one is obviously speed, or speed-related accidents aren't nearly as high as some people would think. It's usually inattention that creates these traffic accidents, hence the rear end collision. So texting or looking over to see if blue lights that somebody has somebody stop, and they slow. You understand what I'm talking about if you're ruining this traffic. So we do that. We have those on the books right now as far as some new traffic blitzes coming. It's not specific just to Hilton Head, the running of the red lights. And yes, they play the game. They do it on Rose Hill. They do it on Moss Creek. They do it at Malfors Road, up and down. Their 278 Causeway, or all the way from the property. So Beaufort County property. So we have Highway Patrol running on Hilton Head as frequently as they can, but their numbers are down. We steal people from them, and we have, and we will continue and bring them here to us.
Lieutenant, I'll try and pay closer attention to what's going on out there, and I look forward to seeing those traffic stops out there, because I think when people see traffic stops, they say, oh, there is enforcement here, and I'll slow down or I won't run that red light. And I hope that that is in fact what happens. On a totally different subject, I mentioned crime. I've heard the solicitor give a presentation about his career crime task force, where they're trying to pick up the people and that are repeat offenders. Do you see a lot of repeat offenders?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I marked this out as a talking point in case this came up, and it did.
Well, I set you up for it.
We have, and I didn't even have to prompt you for it. Recently, we have one particular person. There's several that are career in this opportunity to break into cars and things like this. These career criminals. One was, we just got his bond revoked, and I believe he was out on bond for 16 or 17 B&E motor vehicles. He's out on bond. This guy's a career criminal. He's been a career criminal since he was probably 14 years old, 15 years old. Those are the ones that we've detected. Last week, we got another DNA hit on him. He's sitting in jail right now for B&E motor vehicles. He will break into your, and this is a guy that will snap your window out to steal what's in the front seat, not just check the doors. With his arrest and the arrest of a couple others that kind of made some headline news around here in the last couple of weeks down on the south end, I will say that our B&E motor vehicle rate has gone down to some degree. Not enough to notice, but there's still a few out there. These specifics, especially this one, I don't know if they've served the warrant on him yet or not for the DNA hit, but they've revoked his bond, and the phone calls have been made. The solicitor is well aware of this, and yes, we're relaying information to them as much as possible. It's a conversation that comes up anytime these people rear their head in committing these crimes and the probable cause established for their arrest, especially if they're out on bond for the exact same thing. Now, it's another hearing. It's not just somebody waved a pen and they actually have to be in front of the judge to have it denied.
They need to be in jail.
Right. And it's kind of consistent with the crime that's being committed. If they're in jail, they can't commit the crime. I mean, I don't mean to be overly obvious, but it is what it is.
Lastly, what is the status of the county detention facility? Is it full, or are there beds that we could bring more people into if needed?
I checked the status last week, as a matter of fact, and the number, we're at about, I think the number that popped in my head was about 48% full.
Ooh.
Maybe closer to 50, maybe 49%.
Which means that there's another 50%.
Plenty of beds.
Available. Good.
Plenty of
Great.
beds available.
Go out and catch the bad guys. Thank you for your service.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Lieutenant.
Yes, sir.
Bill,
Thank you.
And yes, sir.
Follow up to Glenn. I think you bring up a really good point, and that is if we've got crime numbers and vehicle collision numbers on the rise, do you routinely allocate staff to where those trends are highest?
We do directed enforcement, sir. That directed enforcement information comes out from the master sergeant through analysis that's obtained through our data reporting, and it comes out every week. Kira Morris is here. She's the one that spits that data out to us and provides it to the master sergeant, and he directs that to the supervisors over the shift. in between calls for service, once the reports are caught up, if the guys want to have something else that needs to be done versus extra patrols, because we have extra patrols as well. Their hands are they're very busy, but that's part of what goes out during the day. And this is the concentrated area to locate. If you're going to do traffic enforcement, we want you on the Hilton Head Plantation traffic light. Westbound 278 at 3 o'clock in the afternoon is a great time to stop people from running that red light. Eastbound is a great time to stop people from running that light right there. I can't tell you right this second that is a hard intersection, but there are some that are pretty.
But I guess generally
tough.
speaking, Lieutenant, does that mean we have increasing or increased coverage on the island versus same time last year?
We do from time to time, like I hinted on, I'm right now actually working on a directed enforcement aspect where we'll pull some overtime deputies. They'd want to sign up just to run traffic. And it's area specific. They will be given targeted areas in order to work. When kickoff of summer hit, we ran a blitz that ran all the way down to the Coligny traffic circle, all the way from Gumtree Road on the Cross Island. And it was extremely effective. I thought the numbers were extremely high. It's not hard to find. 70 and a 55 is pretty easy. It's not that we want to go out and write a bunch of citations. It's the actual act of the enforcement aspect. Whether a citation or a warning is given, yes, sir, that's those directed enforcement, that's what we're working on now. And we'll unveil that probably to the guys, and they'll be on it within the next week we can have.
Okay. I will be anxious to see second quarter numbers.
Thank you. Lieutenant, any other key points you wanted to share today? Did anyone from the public have any questions? Hearing none, thank you very much, Lieutenant.
Thank you very much.
And thanks for your service.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is consideration of an ordinance authorizing the town manager to take such actions as may be necessary to effectuate in exchange and transfer of real estate property owned by the town of Hilton Head with Beaufort County in exchange for the receipt of certain real property located on Hilton Head. Mr. Gruber, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I want to take this opportunity, let's see here. Let's get. Perfect. In your packets today, this item is coming before you based upon a series of discussions that the town manager has been having with the county administrator in looking at property on the island that, if we're able to successfully negotiate a swap between the two, would ultimately serve the interests of both the town and the county. And so I want to take an opportunity to kind of walk you through what is currently being proposed, answer any questions that you might have, and receive information about possibly moving this item forward to town council for formal consideration. So the first parcel that I want to talk about is actually two contiguous parcels. You see them there highlighted on the screen. These properties are known as Barker Field, and you can see that they're listed as Parcel A and Parcel B, but both of them effectively make up the majority of the property. Parcel A is just shy of 3 acres, and Parcel B is just shy of 8 acres. They're currently used for recreational activities, both from the county programming and from the town programming. In the materials, one of the conditions that the county has requested is that in exchange for transferring the title to these properties to the county would ask that they retain the ability to use these properties for the programming that they currently offer. We believe that that's something that can be accomplished. It would likely take coordination between Island Rec and the Parks and Rec Department, but assuming that those two entities can get together and to work out a mutually agreeable schedule, that would be something that we would be able to accomplish with this particular transfer. One thing I think it's important to note, and I'm going to try to see if I can highlight it here, this area right here is actually not owned by the county. It's privately owned. The county has a lease agreement for that, and that essentially constitutes the parking areas for the park itself. So in addition, we've referenced in this document here the assignment of a lease agreement for this particular parcel that would go along with the actual transfer.
In terms of maintenance going forward,
So the county has provided maintenance on these parcels in the past. However, the town has been taking over more and more of those maintenance responsibilities. And just to the north of this property, you can see it here. This is Barker Field Extension. This is already owned by the town and is maintained by the town. So we don't anticipate a significant increase in maintenance costs. What this does allow us to do, though, is if we look at investing significant amounts of capital improvements at this property, then we'll have the ability to control doing that, knowing that we own title to them.
just a question to the committee. Is it the pleasure of the committee to have the presentation on all the parcels, or would you like to have questions parcel by parcel?
Parcel by parcel makes sense for me.
Okay.
All right, so
Unless-
any comments, questions on this parcel?
I would like to hear from Frank Soul about joint use of the field with the county and how feasible that would be.
Actually, it'd be real feasible. Actually, it's happening now, just the other way. We work with the Parks and Rec Department to schedule programs and activities out there. It would be just the opposite. They would work with us to do that. We have a great working relationship, and doesn't matter who owns it. I mean, I want us to have control, meaning the town of Hilton Head, but I think that relationship will continue.
The service that you provide to us is so valuable that I want to make sure that moving forward with a joint use would not be detrimental to your programming.
Actually, it will allow us the opportunity to increase our programming, and knowing that that's part of the inventory that we would have access to with our relationship with the town and scheduling facilities is really, to me, this is exciting and probably long overdue. So I'm looking forward to it. So.
Thank you.
I think this has been a long time in the making. I can recall discussions about this 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So we're finally to the table, and this is really positive for you.
Yeah, it's an excellent opportunity, and also the next piece that will be up
Yep.
there is also an excellent opportunity.
Yeah.
So,
Frank,
thank
in
you.
terms of joint use, at the end of the day, who's in charge?
At the end of the day, in the joint use, programming we would be, and then we would work with facilities and coordinating the maintenance, just like we do with Chaplain Park, like we do with the parcel that Josh spoke about across the street. So we would work together, and then the schedule would come out. Right now, what we do on a monthly basis is that we provide facilities with the scheduling of the park and what's coming up. And they have that so they can work around maintenance, and same thing vice versa. If something's happening at a park that we need to know about, that maybe we need to schedule activities differently, we go ahead and work around that.
Okay, thank you. Josh, please continue.
The next parcel, and again, it's a series of two parcels, but they are connected here. We refer to this as the old schoolhouse property. My understanding is there did used to be an old government building on this particular property that at one point in time was used as a school. At one point in time, it was used as a municipal court. It's had a couple of different iterations, but it now is parking facility up here along 278 William Hilton Parkway, and then back here there are basketball court and then several, I believe they've been converted to pickleball courts at this point in time. They were at one point in time tennis courts. Parcel C is just a little over 3 acres, and parcel D is just a little over 4 acres, so just shy of about 7.5 acres in total.
Josh, in the interest of the public, can you identify further where this is within the context of the island?
Yes, so this road coming right here is 278. This is Adriana Lane, which comes off of it right here, and it accesses, it's an easement that goes back to serve these residential parcels right here. Spanish Wells Road intersection is just a little bit further down here.
Thank you.
Any questions on this particular parcel?
Please proceed.
So this is town-owned property that is located at the end of Jenkins Road, which is this roadway right here. And the county is requesting that this parcel, parcel G, which is right at 1 acre, be transferred to the county, and they would like to utilize it in furtherance of this fishing boat pier that they have here. So there's not a landing back here. There is the marina on this side of the roadway, but here is county-owned infrastructure. They've historically had some parking right here, but they'd like to expand the ability for parking in that particular area.
Comments, questions?
The town didn't have any prior use of that property.
At this point, no. We've really held off on really identifying any kind of uses of it. The parcel that's just to the south here is actually part of a much larger 30-acre parcel. But this particular portion up here was already subdivided off when the town acquired it. And at this point, I don't believe we've identified any potential uses for it.
Thank you.
Are they, excuse me, are they limited to parking there in terms of use, or what else?
I don't know that they've indicated any other development opportunities for it. I don't know that there are any restrictive covenants or anything that have been placed on the land. It's our understanding that that's what they want to use the property for, but I guess in theory, it could be used for anything that parcel might be zoned for, although I'm not aware of what it's currently zoned.
Does anyone know? Does anyone here today know what it's zoned?
I don't know. I was going to say, it's something we can certainly get for you. It wouldn't surprise me that it was likely a part of this larger piece here, and I believe when the town acquired that, I believe they rezoned it. So it may be Parks and Recreation zoned at this point in time.
Thank you. Please continue.
And then this is the last, and again, it's 2 parcels, but they are connected. For reference purposes, this is the Cross Islands Parkway coming over onto the southern part of the island here. This is Helmsman's Way, so this is how you would get to the Hague Point ferry boat landing, and this is how you get over to the marina, which is on the other side. So this property right here was conveyed to the town, I believe, as part of the Cross Island Parkway project. This is where the actual parking for the Cross Island boat landing, which is right here, is located. And then this parcel right here, we've got it indicated in red. It's actually part of a much larger parcel that comes all the way down here. We are not looking at transferring any portion of this parcel, but in order to get access for ingress and egress purposes here, the county is requesting that this parcel be surveyed and be subdivided off to ultimately be transferred to them. Part of the reason is this parcel right here, the county is looking at acquiring this property either directly or by eminent domain in order to pursue the potential development of a Defusky Island ferry terminal on this parcel. One of the requirements that the town has requested with regards to these parcels, first and foremost, that this public boat landing remain open for use by the general public, that the parking that is located here, again, be open for use by the public, essentially as it exists now for the parking of boats, trailers, and vehicles associated with public access. And then additionally, we've requested that the town be given a seat at the table with regards to the development of this particular property and the ferry terminal and any improvements that may go along with that. Essentially, wanting to secure that any development that the county undertakes is done within the thought of benefit to the island as a whole. It's kept in the character of the island and is done in a manner in which is going to be keeping with the branding and character of the island.
So from the Design Review Committee, I would assume, based on what you just said, is that the county would have to stop there. and get approval before proceeding.
Correct. What we've talked about is essentially being partners with them up front as they're putting together the design plans. That way, there wouldn't be any objections, at least from our end, at that point, and then it would go through the normal review processes as it goes forward.
Comments, questions?
I like it.
Josh, the parcel F,
Yes.
you've talked about some plans. Has that been reduced to an agreement, or is these just concepts at the moment?
These are just concepts at the moment.
Okay, so we're not bound to anything?
No, sir.
With regard to parcel F?
No, there is no requirements. The town actually does have an agreement, but our agreement is with regards to the operations of the boat landing itself. And so that's not really pertinent to the ownership of the properties, but we have an existing agreement where the town owns this property, but the county actually manages it as part of the public boat landings.
And then the concept of the Domesticated Island terminal is very interesting, and we're going to be fascinated to see how that develops and move forward. Final question on parcel E, what is the approximate acreage?
So parcel E is 1.52 acres.
Okay.
And then again, here, when we prepared these documents, we were initially looking at this being an easement. In our subsequent conversations with the county, because they are looking to acquire this parcel over here, they would like the town to consider subdividing off this portion of the property and transferring it to them, so they would wind up with one contiguous parcel.
Okay, thank you.
So, may I?
Oh, yes.
Okay. So just looking at the boat landing again, the wording is, looking to protect that boat landing. It's used heavily
Yes.
by the residents of the island. And the condition is that the town has requested. Is there any way to go from requesting to requiring?
Well, yes, this would be a condition of the purchase and transfer of that property. And so if at any point, and essentially what we would do when we're preparing the actual real estate documents, we could make that either a restrictive covenant that would run with the land, or we could put in some kind of reverter clause that if for some reason it should fail to be available for that purpose, it could revert to the town. But either way, we would look to formally and legally secure the availability of the public to use the boat landing as it currently exists today.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any comments, questions from the public? Is there a motion from our group here to recommend to our colleagues in town council that we proceed with the exchange program between the town of Hilton Head and Beaufort County?
Bill, I would move we proceed and recommend to town council the necessary documents that would facilitate the exchange.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
Well, can I just add a comment in there? May I get the zoning? Okay.
Absolutely. Well, we will provide that
The
shortly.
record should reflect that. Thank you. Thank you, Josh. The next is a review of an administrative program, a process for orientation of new members appointed to town council, boards, commissions, and orientation of new members elected to the office of mayor and town council. Krista, good morning.
Good morning, committee. Thank you for having me today. This is a different view of where I'm usually at.
If I may say, after reading this,
Yeah.
when I look back years ago, I wish this program was in place. I could have been running faster a lot earlier.
Well, I had the opportunity to speak with one of your colleagues about this, and they gave me some feedback on how they felt their orientation went and what was missing and what would be really helpful. And working under the guidance of the town manager and the deputy town manager, we've worked over the last several months, probably from early January, to get this pulled together so that it can start to be utilized and rolled out, especially with this year being an election year. We know how important it's going to be, and we never know how many are going to turn over on council or remain or what's going to happen. So it's important that we have these processes in place. First of all, I just want to thank you, all of you, for everything that we did for my first time going through the appointments and reappointments of the boards and commissions. It was an experience, and it actually helped me come up with things that I won't miss next year. So this will be really helpful. That's kind of where I want to start off with, is with the boards and commissions. As the Community Services and Public Safety Committee, you've been tasked as being a personnel committee, and that's to review applications of those citizens or volunteers interested in serving on one of our town council-appointed boards and commissions. As part of that, you make the final recommendation to go before town council, which is a really important piece. This year, something I'm going to try and focus on moving into our next year's process is recruiting. Our talent bank is very, very low right now. And the committee has asked that I take a look at putting out some more information. So working with communications and other staff and making sure that we reach out to people that may be interested but didn't realize those opportunities existed. I'm going to jump right into the orientation process for the boards and commissions. It's really quite simple. Now, I do want to stress that this is an ongoing effort. As we go through each orientation, we will regularly review and make updates and changes as are necessary. One of those changes, or one of those opportunities for making changes, is the follow-up that we have at the very end. It's about 90 days after the new member of the board and commissioner joins and has been through orientation. Josh will go ahead and give them a call to see how their experience was, ask questions, see what they think could be different, what could be improved. Also, as part of the orientation process, we've included 2 annual trainings, which we've made part of each board and commission. And that is to have our town attorney come in and review the important items, being the State Ethics Act, the Freedom of Information Act, how to conduct an effective meeting, as well as parliamentary procedures and Robert's Rules of Order. Along with the town attorney making that presentation, our Director of Public Safety will conduct an annual presentation as well. And they'll give a presentation on public meeting security procedures and security within Town Hall. As we've seen over the last several years, energy within public meetings at local offices across the country has gotten a little bit more heightened. And we feel that this is a really important part of the training that our boards and commissions go through annually. Are there any questions, recommendations, suggestions you'd like to see with the orientation for new members to boards and commissions?
Committee members, Tom? Jamie?
Hi, Krista.
Hi.
I have one comment that was made to me that I'm just going to pass on. In the past, it seems that times people who have applied for whatever it happens to be, but there's no vacancy, they'll receive a letter. And it could be a misreading of the letter. I'm not really sure, I haven't seen the letter, so I'm not sure how it's been interpreted. But the takeaway that I had from the folks who had received one that I had heard about is that it gave them the impression that that was it for them, that opportunity was kind of closed, that there was, and so I would just suggest that if it doesn't in that letter, and I haven't seen it, just the comments that I've heard in the past, if we could be specific that, you know, you'll either, I know sometimes they just go into the talent bank and then we review them as openings do occur, or that please know whatever, that that's what's happening, or to reapply after whatever that time period is, or if you have another interest, submit for that, or something that gives them that opening to stay involved. That's
Absolutely, and I'll double check. I have a standard form letter that I kind of adapt for the applicants when I receive them, but I'll make sure to go back in there and note that that we do keep them on file for the 3-year period of time from the date received.
Okay, thank you.
Krista, you've done a beautiful job here, and I think you're going to enhance our database considerably with this. I recall when I first was appointed to the BZA, my orientation was, I sat in that chair over there in the first meeting and had to vote accordingly. And so you're doing a lot that really needs to be done here. One thing I'm not sure is in here clearly, and that is we should encourage these applicants to, in fact, attend meetings before the final appointment is made, so that they actually do understand how the meetings are conducted and what the work is. And maybe that could also be supplemented by suggesting to them to go to the website where those meetings are recorded so that they could review them in case they couldn't attend. I think the more that you see what actually happens, the more you understand what your responsibilities would be.
Agreed, and I think that's a wonderful idea, and I'll definitely include that.
And then with regard to the lower level of the database, I would encourage you to work with Carolyn to try to spread the word and to get people out. I have mentioned this in the newsletters that I send out, and people, so to make sure people know that it's there, because we have so many wonderful, intelligent people here with broad experience and background. We just need to make it known. We want them. We need to see you here. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Krista, as a sidebar, and I think Josh would attest to this, a source of new recruits may be leadership class from the chamber. They're required to attend 30 or 40 public meetings, so the likelihood of them being familiar with some of these committees is pretty high. So I would make an open invitation, an annual routine to each incoming leadership class at the chamber.
That's a wonderful idea. I love it.
Any other comments or questions?
All right, I'm going to move straight into the general election candidacy and the orientation for new members to town council and the office of mayor. One thing I'd just like to remind everyone is that a week from today, Monday, August the 1st, statement of candidacy filing will open. It is open for 15 business days. It runs through August the 15th at noon. And those that are submitting them will need to just bring them to town hall. So as we get into the orientation for our new elected officials, a couple of things stood out to us is that oftentimes in the past, everybody was handed a big binder, a big stack of materials, sometimes a flash drive with all those materials on them, but weren't provided the resources or the contact information for really getting down into the next level and being able to conduct your role as elected officials, council members, appropriately. So what we've done this time is we've taken all of those documents and created a list of, a comprehensive list of nothing but documents that would be included. But we've also broken it down into different categories of meeting with the town manager, meeting with human resources, public safety, human resources, and so on. This way you can put a name to a face, be able to get some information that typically you wouldn't get without speaking to those individuals. We're also, just like the boards and commissions, we're going to continue to update this as often as possible. We want to hear back from council, from mayor, and see what we need to be doing better. A couple of things that stood out to us was the equipment, making sure that everybody has access to the appropriate equipment and that it's maintained on a regular basis. Other things included information of the municipal association. Oftentimes in the past, what has happened is I've been provided your information and just updated the database, and off you guys get mails and information from me. So we're going to make sure that everybody's well versed on this information when they receive it. Secondly, as the town clerk, I will be a primary point of contact for a lot of this information. I will make sure that it's all gathered, it's provided to you, and that your meetings are updated, your calendars are updated, and things like that. So with that, are there any questions on this program?
Comments, questions?
I would like to go back to the previous program and ask you, do we have a sophisticated computer application that is the database, or is it just a file cabinet?
Right now, what we are using is currently on, it's like a filing cabinet because it's just a large Excel spreadsheet. We are working with Granicus, who is going to help us manage that process, so it will automatically update. In fact, I have a meeting with Renee this week to finish the last portions of coding so that we can get that information put up there, and it's kept and it's maintained pretty much on its own with some tweaks and changes here. It also provides for an automated filing system for your applications.
there's some pretty sophisticated database software applications out there. You may want to talk to IT and see if they have some additional
Absolutely.
suggestions for you on that.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you. Tom?
Krista, this is outstanding. It would have been nice to have this 8 years ago. I think equally as important might be, as this is for ingoing, what do you expect from outgoing?
Got it. That's very good. And, you know, I think oftentimes we're looking forward and not looking beyond that. So that's really good. I like that.
Debriefing, what materials are you looking to recover?
An exit interview.
Yeah.
Good point. Tammy?
Oh, I'm sorry. This was It's very comprehensive.
We tried to make it as comprehensive as possible, and I still know there's, as I'm looking at it, I can see a couple things I probably could have added, but I think we'll come across it throughout this whole process. Thank you.
Great job.
Thank you.
Thank
Excellent
you.
job. Next item on the agenda is a consideration of a proposed ordinance to amend Chapter 1 of Title 17 of the Municipal Code of Hilton Head Island, adopted by reference of the Beaufort County Ordinance, Chapter 14, Article 2, Animal Control.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I wanted to take this opportunity to just kind of tee this issue up, and then I'm going to be turning it over to a couple of our colleagues from the county. The town relies upon the county to provide all of its animal control services within the boundaries of the island itself. And in exchange for receiving those services, historically, we as the town have adopted the county's animal control code so that the county's animal control officers have one set of ordinances to enforce countywide rather than potentially having to change as they go in and out of jurisdictions within some of the other municipalities. Recently, the county instituted some changes to their code. They've been reaching out to the municipalities after that point in time to let us know of those changes. They are now riding the circuit, going around to all of the municipalities to provide information about what those changes entail. And so we've invited Ms. Brittany Ward, who's the Deputy County Attorney, and Ms. Tallulah Trice, who's the Animal Services Director, to come and basically provide you with some information about the recent changes and answer any questions that you may have. And with that, I'll turn it over. Yes, sir.
Mr. Rubin, just a point here. Are we here today to listen and get educated, or are we here today to review and recommend adoption?
So I think maybe a little bit of both. It really kind of depends upon your level of comfortability with it. Ultimately, because of our relationship with the county, if the committee does feel comfortable with these changes, we would ask that you move it forward. But obviously, this is the first time that you've been exposed to this information, and so we want to make sure that you do feel comfortable with it before it is moved forward. So we'll kind of play it by ear and see how it goes.
Josh, does staff have any particular heartburn with any of these points?
No, we've reviewed it. We've had conversations with the county staff just to make sure that we're understanding it correctly, and we do. At this point, we don't have any concerns. We think there's a couple of interesting points that they're going to cover, particularly with some stuff regarding state law and how that impacts some local stuff here. But otherwise, we do think that most of the recommendations that they're bringing forward are good recommendations for us to consider.
So you recommend we move it forward?
Yes, if the committee feels comfortable.
So if it's the pleasure of the group, could we ask the presenter to share the highlights of the changes?
Absolutely, that's our intent.
Pleasure of the group.
Please.
My question could probably be
Yes, ma'am.
answered to the presenter. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Josh.
Morning, ladies.
Hello, how are you doing? Thank you for letting us come forward this morning. As you said, Josh introduced, I'm Brittany Ward, Deputy Attorney for the county, and Tallulah McGee here, who's the Director of Animal Control. The purpose of our reorganizing and adding some additional language to the county ordinance was because there were several larger issues that we had seen a year, 2 years ago. Tallulah and I got together and I said, rather than identifying one single aspect at a time, let's take some time and actually review the entire ordinance so that we can address everything at once. Otherwise, we get to, as Josh clearly put it right, the circuit and come to you all the time about these things. So I will point out the larger highlighted areas of the ordinance change. Specifically, I think, which Josh was alluding to, we have removed voice control as a form of having your animal or your pet under control. That is because the South Carolina Code changed their rulings. As you all know, we cannot supersede what the code states. So when they changed ours, we are now adjusting what our ordinance says. So that was started the ball rolling as far as changing our ordinances. The second item is we did not remove much language, we reorganized the dangerous dog determination. Previously, when an individual was in a situation whereby an officer was called out for a dangerous dog determination, meaning there was a dog attack, whether dog on dog or dog on human, there was 5 different aspects that were immediately applied to that individual, meaning they had to immediately receive or obtain insurance, as well as some others as far as keeping the dog maintained in a gated area. I have since moved that to after a court hearing is held, rather than when an officer determines it is a dangerous dog. So that is simply a mechanics movement. Going on dangerous dogs, we've also, over the course of my 4 years prosecuting these, there are some very heartfelt cases that come forward, especially when a individual owns we'll consider a young dog or a puppy, 2-3 years old, who unfortunately gets themselves in a situation and a human is attacked or another dog is attacked. When we took those to court, it was difficult for not only the prosecutor, but as well as a judge to deem a 2 or 3-year-old dog who clearly got put in a bad situation, a dangerous dog. So we have created another aspect to a nuisance animal. The nuisance animal can be determined. It is a lesser included charge of a dangerous dog, but when deemed appropriate by a judge, a nuisance dog must be kept within a fenced-in area. It must be contained on a leash at all times, but the aspects of the dog having to be in a 4-sided crate at all times, it cannot be out in a yard, it cannot be in a fenced-in area, opposed to a nuisance where we still allow the dog to be in a fenced-in area, and they don't have to have a muzzle. So it is, again, a lesser included charge of a dangerous animal. I'm going to pause there to make sure there's no questions, because I know I got some from our council about that one.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I have a lot of questions.
Okay.
You're speaking to a dog lover.
Yes.
Well,
Many animals. Oops.
that's true. But dogs, cats, wildlife in general. You mentioned voice control, and as I read this, I have a question about that. So are we saying that voice control is no longer an option rather than walking or being on a leash?
Yes, the state law says that, they have to be, it's a leash law. So that's something y'all would need to take up with the state. So I understand the beaches are an issue, but that is, that's a problem. Again, as Brittany was saying, that's a legal issue that you can talk to Josh about having designated areas.
Okay, so which you brought up the second point that goes along that. I see that on, I think it's page 28, even with glasses, I'm not sure if it's an 8 or a 6, but under B, exemptions, are we saying that our beaches are no longer,
We have removed the beaches from our ordinance, and the reasoning behind that is because the state code does not allow for an exemption. Now, I have had other conversations with other municipalities whereby they have places such as dog parks, which we consider a public area. I would argue that that is a fenced-in area, and there's an exception there, but I would lean towards your legal counsel to say what your options are in order to continue dogs to be allowed on the beaches. I cannot here, although my capacity as a deputy attorney, I cannot provide you legal advice. So, but I would suggest you can speak with them about that.
All right, I just wanted to make sure you clearly read that. And then a lot of the wording, by the way, I voted no last time y'all brought this forward because there was a lot of wording that I was not comfortable with because I did not believe that it was animal friendly. I didn't think it gave, as you clearly pointed out, opportunities for us to see beyond the immediate act. This does improve those, so thank you for looking at some of that. One thing that still bothers me, though, and maybe I've read this incorrectly, I'll leave it to y'all to straighten me out if I'm wrong. It seems like there's a specific attempt to extinguish the pit bull category of dogs.
I'm going to lean to the
Beaufort,
Director of
yes.
Animal Control to handle that question.
Yes, I'm on the board of the State of Animal Control, South Carolina, and they're pushing to put a state law into effect towards, it's not, it's not breed, I know it's breed specific, but it's not about the breed, or, or it's not about the deed, it's about the breed. Right now at Hilton Head Humane and at Beaufort County, we have over 200 pit bulls. It's not our fault. Every shelter across the United States is full. There's a problem. Insurance is a problem. They ban them. Military bans them. POAs, HOAs on Hilton Head, they don't permit a pit-like dog. So again, we're stuck with it. So the choice is we can euthanize or spay and neuter. Once we, and I go back to DNR, I think I told you that. DNR looks at every species and said one cobia, this many deer, this many gator tags will go out. We're doing the same thing. So is DNR picking on the flounder or picking on the cobia? No, it's out of balance. And so that's all we're doing is it's out of balance, and we're trying to do it through spay neuter.
Well, I appreciate that over euthanize. So
It's y'all's choice. I mean, euthanize or spay and neuter.
I get that.
Because there's no outlet. And again, taxpayers, their length of stay is 7 to 8 months. A golden retriever is less than 5 minutes.
Right.
So there is a problem.
No,
Yes, ma'am.
absolutely is. In addition to that, I know this is probably not the best place for this, but I'm of the belief that those puppies or a dog who has developed bad traits is really the direct cause of the person who is their primary caretaker, right? So I'm not sure what we have in place, how we address that, but I certainly, as far as education goes, and that's a realm of this whole issue that I'd like to see some more work done. I'm more than willing to volunteer any time and effort to that.
Don't
but
say that unless you're serious, because
No,
this lady
I-
right here next
Oh, yeah.
to me.
I'm very serious because, I don't like the word control, but we certainly do have the influence over those who we care for to help them develop good traits and become good humans and good four-legged pets.
And on that note, I will say that Tallulah is heavily involved when it comes to helping out citizens. I know specifically I handled 2 or 3 cases where she assisted the individual to get the dogs relocated into facilities all the way up to Ohio. So if there is a possibility and the person is willing to work, Tallulah is definitely the person who's going to take up that job and take it seriously and help the dog more than anything.
And then I guess on the nuisance dog, I think I've actually worked on this particular aspect on changing an ordinance up north. The broad range of barking being a nuisance to a neighbor and the unsubstantiated type of claims that are hard to define as what that means. Is it a certain length of time? Is it so many days? And that sort of thing. This still seems to be broad and leaves the pet, the animal, and the homeowner at the mercy of a difficult neighbor who would just soon see her animal gone completely just for whatever their agenda may be. So I'm just going to leave that out there, that's still a difficult area of this for me that I think that probably we could do a bit more work on. Thank you, though. I know you guys have been working hard.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? Glenn?
I think the concept of requiring insurance after a dangerous dog has been identified is great. I'm wondering, how do we know that insurance is not immediately canceled the next week?
Our animal control officers, they actually also have to register the dangerous dog with Beaufort County Animal Control. So the dog is registered, and our officers follow up with those to ensure, one, that it's implemented, and two, if there's ever any question as to whether or not it's been canceled. I believe they have it yearly updated.
So you don't get notice of cancellation?
When they re-register the dog, so the annual.
Yes.
You can explain this better.
It just
Yes.
seems, it seems to me, you know, people can pay for the insurance, cancel it, and get a return of premium. In the case of a mortgage, for example, the mortgage, you get notice, and I think some sort of notice provision in there would be very useful.
Yeah, we can do that. We do, there's a breeder's license, so every year we review that to make sure they're up to date. And so we do welfare checks on dangerous dogs in the county. So we're working on that. And Sheriff Tanner's actually, the problem with, against our ordinance is if a dog is truly dangerous, if we deem it dangerous, it can be moved to Jasper County and it's no longer dangerous. So in those circumstances, Sheriff Tanner has offered his officers will assist him, and he will deem those dangerous animals so that it's in the state of South Carolina. So we are working, very diligently on that.
But you understand my point about easy
Yes, sir, I
cancellation?
do.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Those would be the major points that, unless Josh has any other items you wanted me to point out within here.
The one item I would suggest just highlighting, just because I do know it's a change, is the requirement of domesticated pet owners to care for their animals during a natural disaster.
Yes. So we did add, there is a livestock, talking about hurricanes, and actually it's based because of Hilton Head. But there were horses in floodwaters. They were confined. They had refrained from movement. So they were stuck. It puts us in danger. I do swift and slackwater rescues in the past, and it's very dangerous because you don't know what's under you. So we're trying to tell people if they live in a flood-prone area and they know the map, that they must evacuate those animals. They can't keep them confined within that. So anyway, chickens are a problem too, as you know. So if people keep them in a coop and they live in flood-prone, they better take them with them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Or get them airborne.
Yes, sir.
Any other comments, questions?
Josh, did we have a problem on the island with Lawton stables?
So I'll tell you, based upon my preliminary conversations, it was my understanding that domestic animals were going to be the focus. You didn't want your dog to be tied up and left while you skedaddled out of town. Livestock, on the other hand, may be more problematic. I understand certainly not confining them in certain areas, making sure that they have the ability to move around. But I would be somewhat concerned about that, knowing some of the populations that we have on the island that rely upon livestock and animals like that may not have the means to be able to transport them off of the island. And so I think that we can find some kind of balance where it's understanding you're not wanting to put them in harm's way, but there may not realistically be the ability to load them on a trailer and move them out of town either. So again, drawing a clear distinction between livestock and domestic animals, I think may be important for that analysis.
Yes, and so we have an app, and we're trying to go around and find those areas, because it's now, Brittany got it in a smaller area because it is the flood-prone areas. And so we're identifying where the livestock is, and then we're here to help right now. Don't wait 2 days before or a day before, because that's what happens. So I have MOUs with Aiken and other counties that have the ability to bring horse trailers down. They have the areas that they can confine the animals, but we've got to do that now. So that's one thing we're trying to work on, is really go out into the areas, and we know a lot of the people, so we do work with them.
Thank you very much. If there are any comments from the public? Hearing none, is there a motion from this committee to move forward to town council for approval, the amended ordinance relative to animal control?
I would so move.
I'll second it.
Any further, I hate to,
Well, there were a couple of points that were brought up that we need further discussion on, that I'm not sure where that falls in terms of, we had that discussion prior to it going to town council for a final vote, or additional information on how.
Could you please be specific? What points of clarification?
Beaches for one, I guess. We can go back to the record, but that's,
So if we're looking to just get confirmation as to whether or not it does or does not apply, we can probably provide that now. At least I can tell you, having read the state law provision that's being referenced, it's very clear. It does not grant an opportunity for an animal to be off of a leash and still remain compliant with that wording. However, if we wanted to look at creating the ability for some designated area to be outside the limits of that, as Ms. Ward has indicated, that is something that from a policy standpoint, town council can look at. I think as part of the animal control ordinance changes, what they've proposed is in keeping with the state law language. So that leaves us then with a couple of different options. One, if you want to develop that option to contemporaneously move forward with these updates, we can do that too. And in that case, I would recommend that the committee just postpone taking any action on it with a directive for staff to come back with that language. Or if you understand what kind of the implications are that, you know, by adopting the updates both here at the county level and understanding what the language is at the state level, that the ability to have a dog off the leash may not be allowed any longer, then we would just bring it forward as it currently is. So part of it depends upon kind of what the thought of the committee is.
And if I may, just to point it out, right now, the town of Hilton has clearly adopted the previous ordinance. The things that I brought forward today, such as the lesser included dangerous dog determination, the movement of requirements for a dangerous dog, anything to do with the hurricane, we can't implement those until this is passed. And again, I'm just making sure that's very clear because there have been situations that have occurred with our officers where they would like to provide not the dangerous dog, but a nuisance ticket, and they don't have the ability to do so. So.
that's a big change for people who take their dogs to the beaches and for our visitors who, I don't know how long implementation is in education and that takes for that sort of big change, but it's a,
So state law prohibits voice control.
Correct.
And
Yeah.
this is-
I was going to say, I'm not exactly sure the timing of when that change was done, but my understanding is it was changed at the state level.
Okay.
And when that change was made, the language that was used was very clear that the dog must be on a physical leash at all times, that it is off the property of the owner.
And we have the ability to exclude certain areas on the island to that?
I think the thought being if there's appropriate areas, and I think the best example is a dog park. It is a contained area. The intent of it is for animals to be off leashes while in those areas. And so I don't believe that something like that would be in contravention to what the state has put in place. Now, if we wanted to take and expand upon that to designate other public areas as being similar, I think we probably could take a look at doing that. But that would, again, would have to be the will of council that from a policy standpoint, you would want to take that action.
Well, I think Tammy's right. We should consider the beach as that additional public area.
So what I would if that's the direction of the committee, what I would recommend is I think we should probably prepare that language so that it can contemporaneously move forward with the updates to the ordinance itself. So if there's a clear understanding from the committee, we can do that and bring everything forward when it comes forward to town council at the same time. Or if you'd like to see it beforehand, what we'll do is we'll bring this back to you at your regularly scheduled meeting next month, get concurrence on the language, and then we can move it forward from there.
What I would recommend for consideration for our group is that we do what Josh is recommending, that we as a committee instruct town staff to come forward with a motion to approve this with the modification that we can design and develop and implement a dog park arrangement on the beaches.
So Glenn's motion will have Josh's comments added to it.
So adopted.
Okay. All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda, I, as chair, have heard and received multiple comments from my colleagues here at the dais relative to this motion, and I've asked them, in the interest of time and conciseness, to translate their thoughts into writing, into recommendations, to come back to our committee at our next meeting. So I'd like a motion to do that.
I'll make that motion for you, though.
All those in favor? So moved.
Excuse me, sir, Chairman Harkins, can I have, for a point of order, can you repeat that, please?
Sure.
We are deferring this until additional comments from committee are forwarded to staff.
Thank you very much, I
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Krista, we have before us executive session. Do we have reasons to hold one?
Yes, sir. Discussion for personnel matters related to appointments to the Town of Hilton Head Island boards and commissions pursuant to the South Carolina Freedom of Information Act, Section 30-4-70A1.
Is there a motion to proceed to executive session for the
So moved.
reasons outlined?
So moved for the purpose stated.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. We stand. Our committee met in executive session and took no action. Is there a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Stand adjourned. Thank you.